Everybody, I'd like to say thank you very much to Bob Puett and Terri Puett. They're one of our couples for love letters. Thank you guys. Thanks you so much for doing this. We're talking to all the couples before they have their date on our special night and asking them a few questions, and would like to ask you a few if that's okay.
Sure.
Like, for instance, how did you first meet?
Well, we met when doing a play, obviously.
Which one?
Richard III. Who else was in that?
A lot of people. Yeah, John was in there.
How long ago was that?
That was
Oh, shoot.
94, so yeah. 18 years ago.
Yeah.
So it's been quite a while.
Yeah. I was brand new to theater, and I walked in, and it was a whole bunch of people that I didn't know any of them, and Bob was just kind of one of the group, so yeah.
Remember when Terri walked in, I wish at that moment I had said, "That's the woman I'm going to marry," because it makes a great story. But I didn't. I did marry her, though, so it all ends up.
Yeah, we had no idea.
Well,
we had no idea.
Not a clue.
So, Richard III. I remember that show.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what was your first date? Who asked who out first?
Well, if you want to be technical, our first date, I asked a girlfriend from the play who Bob was dating at the time, and she said, well, I'll have Bob come also, and then she also invited another friend of ours. So the four of us showed up at the play, and then the other two people left right before it started. So it was just Bob and I watching Kiss Me Kate.
Well, yeah.
And we had a great time. So I don't know technically if it was a date.
Well, it turned into a date.
Yeah, well, they came back afterward, and we all went to dinner. And I remember thinking what a sweet guy he was and how pleasant. That's when I really kind of got to know him, because like I said before that, he was part of a large group. But yeah, so technically our first date was we got stood up by other people.
Yeah.
So did one of you, after that, ask the other person out for the first time?
It was really odd the way it happened. It was almost kind of like osmosis. Because Richard III ended, and we went our separate ways, and we were involved. We were not available, at the time, basically.
He was dating the girl in the play, which is funny because in the dressing room one night, she was upset with something he had done, and I remember turning to her and saying, if I would have dated a man like that, he's so sweet and so wonderful, I would have never given him up. I don't know what you're complaining about. He's a great guy. And I just always thought that was funny because I thought she was foolish for not having appreciated him.
It's funny how things work out sometimes.
Yeah.
But I did another play, and Terri came to see it that night. We saw each other in the audience and thought that was it. Oh, this is another friend from a play we did before, theater people. And then she left, and I thought, well, that's it. Didn't think anything more about it. And then
about 6 months later. Yeah.
Yeah, I was walking down the main breezeway of Tacoma Mall. That was where I worked at the time. And I hear this voice, Robert. And I look, and I saw this gorgeous woman. And I think I even did that thing you see in the movies sometimes, that me, and I look, and it's Terri. And we stopped and we talked and said hello and passed a couple of words. I think almost the first words out of her mouth was that she was single now.
Yeah.
And
I said, I'm working right over at the other end of the mall. Come over and say hi. His hi lasted 45 minutes. He almost got me in trouble because I was supposed to be working, and he stood there for 45 minutes and talked with me.
Yeah, I didn't mean to get her in trouble. But, yeah, she wrote down her phone number, so you kind of answer your question, who asked who out. It wasn't really asking somebody out. She gave me her phone number.
We were going to go see a play because we were both interested in it. Yeah.
And I'll never forget our first phone conversation. It lasted about 3 hours. And I hung up, and then if you ever had a first conversation with someone that you're really kind of crazy about, you think of all the things you said, and you feel foolish for saying all the things you didn't say and wish you had said, and so on. I called her the next day and said, I'm glad I had a chance to talk to you again. And she immediately knew what I was going to say. So you felt a little foolish for some of the things you said. Yeah, I said, yeah. And she said, so did I. I had things like, gosh, I wish I hadn't said that, So
felt
that
like
was
you'd opened up too much.
Yeah, so that's really kind of where you really began to start clicking.
Well, I'll ask you both separately. I'll start with Terri first then. When was that first moment that you realized that I want to get to know Bob more than just hanging out? I really want to get to know Bob. When was that moment?
I just, the more I was with him, it wasn't so much a moment as it was just a feeling of, I realized that everything I did, I was thinking, man, I wish he was here. He would enjoy this. And I would go out with somebody else, and I would spend the whole time talking about my friend Bob and how and how nice he was. And finally, I remember one of the guys who had spent a lot of money on me said, well, why don't you go out with Bob? And that's when I realized that I really didn't, when I wasn't with him, I just missed him so much. Oh, I do in the moment. I was in Hawaii with my mother. We were there for a week, and I was miserable because I was away from him for a whole week. And I was in Hawaii, absolutely miserable, and wanted nothing more than to come home and see him again. So that was kind of the moment when I realized that even in Hawaii, I could not be happy without him.
And you, Bob?
Pretty much close to the same time. Now I have to issue a little caveat here. I was in my mid-20s at the time, and writing. I was writing poetry at the time, and a lot of it was really, self-conscious. My life is an empty hole. Is that real, young person stuff. And when she went off to Hawaii, I really missed her so much, and I wrote a poem about how I missed her so much. And one could argue it was a little self-indulgent and sort of thing. But when I read it, even again today, it's actually a pretty good poem, I think. And I thought, wow, she really inspired something fantastic there. And when she came back, we were glad to see each other, and there was a really strong connection. I was like, don't go away again.
Yeah, we're still that way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It sounds a little. You can roll your eyes if you want, but I often say time spent away from Terri is time spent waiting to be with her again.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah. Well, one last question. This one's for Bob. Can you describe on your wedding day when she came around the corner and there she was on your wedding day? What do you remember of that moment?
She's gonna be my wife. I'm gonna be her husband. This is so cool. It was I really wanted to get married long before she did. She was having real doubts about it, kind of where I was in life, and our personalities were so different and everything else. She really kind of resisted it, and finally on the day it happened, it was like, yay! It finally happened. You see guys who are you're scared out of their minds on their wedding days. You see the wedding videos, and guys who kind of tear up and joke, "Oh, I'm so happy to get married to you." And to me, it was like, man, I'm getting married. This is so cool.
Well, guys, thank you so much for your time tonight. Thank you so much for doing love letters. And folks, come see them on their date night. And join us at Lakewood Playhouse in August. We'll see you there then, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll see you soon.